Hello, this is Christian. Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be joined by Vlad Stinga, who started out as a mentee. At this point has become a friend of Cody and mine. We've had the opportunity to meet Vlad at BPCon in person this year. Had a blast getting to know him, but I have him on the channel today to share some of his story because he actually bought a significant amount of real estate recently and is going to be buying a lot more. So I wanted to be one of the first to start sharing his story online. Vlad, welcome to the channel.
Thanks, Christian. It's good to be here.
Oh, I was curious, Vlad, how did you get started? Because a lot of people assume to be in real estate, you have to have family in real estate or you have to have a whole lot of money. When you first came, first came to America, tell us a little bit about your background, how you got here, and how you got to where you're at.
I'm Romanian, grew up in Romania, born and raised. I came here about 8 years ago, literally with 700 bucks in my pocket, and I didn't know a single soul on this entire continent. And as for the yeah, as for the real estate background, I don't know anybody that knows anybody that ever invested in real estate. Like here in Romania, everybody just owns their own houses and they just inherit them from their parents, and it just goes down generations, and that's it. Nobody ever buys an investment property because nobody wants to rent. Everybody has a house. It's just some weird thing going on in Romania. It's like the highest homeownership rate in the world, if I'm not mistaken, or at least Europe. But
Wow.
anyway, yeah, so I came about 8 years ago, and I was a bartender for 15 years total. I worked on Martha's Vineyard, which is a very, very expensive real estate market. So I couldn't invest there, or I haven't figured out a way to invest there anyway. And basically, I just started teaching myself uh, financial literacy and everything about stocks, real estate, basically getting out of my condition and improving myself and my condition for my family. And I was basically cutting lives at work and doing prep work for the restaurant while listening to podcasts. And my colleagues weren't very happy with me. I was never hanging out with them. I would always like go straight home from work and listen to more podcasts on the way. But I knew what I wanted to do and I knew what I wanted to learn, and it seemed to have worked out quite well for me.
So you figured it all out with podcast. You were looking at financial literacy, trying to figure it out. Now, when you came to the U.S., so did you speak any English when you came to the U.S.? I don't know.
Yeah, that was the one thing that I never struggled with. That was the one subject in school that I was, naturally good at. Must be from, playing video games as a kid or something. But English was always given super, super easy for me. Yeah.
Okay, good, good. Okay, so you can speak the language, but you have no money, no friends, no connections. You're learning through podcast. You're looking at stocks. You're looking at real estate. What drew you to real estate?
Well, first, first I was drawn to stocks, and after learning about $15,000 in losses, that was the price of my learning about them. I decided I need a better way. I'm not disciplined enough for stocks and for day trading stuff like that.
Mhm.
And it was just a random freak YouTube ad that somebody somewhere was talking about real estate and how easy it is to buy. And I'm like, no, it's not. The house is so expensive. How am I going to buy a house? Are you crazy? And yeah, I just got drawn to it. I listened to that whole thing, and then I looked at another one. I looked at another one. I found Bigger Pockets. I found you. I found Pace Morgan. I found a bunch of people that knew a lot about it, and I just started accumulating all that knowledge.
That is amazing. So how long ago was that shift to real estate? When did the real estate journey start?
I think it was about 4 years ago. It definitely took me a long, long time to actually take that step because I had analysis paralysis. I, in the form of always wanting a little more. Like I always thought I needed to see another podcast. I always needed to read another book. I always needed to research another market. There was like save a little more money. I needed like $5,000 more. I always needed just a tiny bit more before I could, make my first investment. And at one point, it just something just flipped in me, and I was like, you know what? Screw it. Let's go. I'm just gonna start calling banks. And I called, I kid you not, at least 20 banks, and at least 19 of them told me, not no, but it's impossible. Due to, my circumstances, I was working seasonally on Martha's Vineyard. I don't know if you know, but everything's very seasonal. Everything closes in the wintertime, like 90% of businesses close. So I'm always working like 6 months out of the year. Sometimes I go and work in Florida for the rest of the year. Sometimes I work in Oregon. When I come back, maybe I work for different restaurants. So the the continuity is not there, and banks really don't like that. And then my green card was pending because the process was very delayed. I was, I had legal status, but my green card was just pending. Nobody would pick up that case and solve it. And it was just a mess. Like a bunch of people told me, no, your green card's pending. It's impossible for you to get a loan. And I kept telling them, no, you just can't do it. I'm gonna find somebody who can. And eventually I found this one bank, this one local bank, and this lady was like, oh yeah, that's not an issue. That's very easy. Like I can do that.
That's one of the things
And
people don't really
yeah,
understand about lending. I hear that all the time. It's people like, oh, well, I can't do this. Even if you're doing, and granted, Cody and I are the seller financing guys, but like we've done some bank loans. I've done a couple more than Cody, but Cody has a big $2 million bank loan. And everyone was like, well, you can't get these big loans if you don't have a job, you don't have work history, you've only owned the real estate for 1 year. Like, you just need to find the right lenders, and there are people out there who will get very creative with you. I just talked to someone who's like, oh yeah, agency, that's easy, we do this with people with napkin math all the time, your guys' books are amazing. They tell you can't get
that's
that type of
awesome.
debt product till you're bigger. It just depends on who you talk to and who has a program for you. That's awesome that you found someone.
I feel like bankers are like every other industry.
Mm-hmm.
90% of people are just bad at their jobs. You just need to find the one person that's good at their job. You need to find the rock star in any industry.
I completely agree with
And,
that.
yeah. And after that, I got my pre-approval letter.
Mm-hmm.
I found a really good agent on the third try. The first two weren't that good, but eventually I found a really good one, and we just started writing offers. And I think I wrote 8 or 9 offers until I got one accepted, and just took off. I spent like 3 months renovating 2 apartments, basically from the studs in a fourplex that I bought. I bought it with an FHA loan
Mm-hmm.
because I thought it was the easiest way to get a property. I didn't know about seller financing at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a fourplex. I renovated 2 of the apartments. I basically flew my dad in from Romania to help me because I needed every single dollar that I had to go into the renovation. I knew my dad knew renovations. I didn't know anything. And I hired a buddy of mine who was a cook at the restaurant where I was working. And the three of us basically slept in the property as we were renovating it. We bought, like inflatable beds from Walmart. It was a blast. But we got it done, and now the building's fully renovated. It's fully rented, and it's making about $3,600 a month in net.
See, that's a phenomenal deal. That's like those are Dion numbers right there for the
Yep.
we have him on the channel all the time, but with when you're renting, I mean that's great profit per unit. That's never the metric that I use, but when you hear numbers like that, it's a fourplex spitting out how much was that? 32?
36, give or
36?
take.
You can tell
Yeah.
we're recording this early in the morning for Christian. 36,000 a month on 40 units is not half bad.
Yeah.
Well, after that, because I think that's around the time I met you. You already had the fourplex.
Yeah. I think we met, several months after I got the fourplex. I
Mhm.
spent the next 6 months or so trying to replicate that, trying to go to more banks, find more loan products, actually find just another one. And I couldn't. I was just hitting wall after wall after wall. everybody was telling me that my DTI was too high. Now, even though I was making more money, because I was bringing in significantly more money, but so was my debt now. So they were telling me even if I pay all of my consumer debt, which wasn't that much, I would still not be able to qualify for a single dollar in loans. And I was like, are you guys crazy? Like, how am I making more money, but I can't qualify for anything anymore?
Isn't that
And,
crazy?
I just kept hitting wall after wall. And eventually I just tried to, found a way to pivot. I found creative finance and I started digging into that. More podcasts.
And that's one of the things that I love about your story. I mean, that's exactly where I got stuck. It took me 2 duplexes, so the same thing, 4 units. I was making more money. Both of them cash flowed, not even quite as well as yours did. They just cash flowed well. I owned one house that I lived in, a duplex over in a city called Bremerton, and a duplex on the other side of the state in Moses Lake, Washington. I had to get creative because the banks are like, yeah, your income's higher than it ever was, but your W-2 income isn't enough to justify more loans. And that's where I hit creative financing as well. Now, you joined our mentorship group. And if anyone wants to check that out, it's on the multifamilystrategy.com. But you joined that group and you're a super active member of our group. I appreciate all the feedback that you give. It's been really fun having you on the team. You do one thing a little different than us in this deal. Yeah, so you just closed a big deal, and that's what I want to talk about here next. Sizable deal, seller financed. We're going to get into all the details here. Our whole shtick is meeting with the owners, building a relationship. It's a very one-on-one relational method. You combine some other people's strategies, which I love. And you actually had you were telling me you had a virtual assistant who was basically just mass calling. Yep. But you hopped on those leads, and instead of trying to go for just the deal, you went for the relationship. So I love this story. It blends the way Cody and I built our business with the way a lot of other, there's a lot of other investors who will go with different marketing methods. Tell us a little bit about how you set up your lead gen, how you actually booked the meeting, and then let's talk about your deal.
Yeah. So basically, I came back from a big real estate conference where I met you guys, and I was so pumped after that conference. I was like, I need to get going. I need to really get into it. I quit my job 2 days before that conference because I just did the math and I was like, you know what? Between my very low cost of living from my arbitrage deal and my income from the property that I already have, I can quit my job and I can just focus on that. So I did that. I had some spare cash and I figured what is the best way to get in front of the most people. So I thought, why don't I just blast everybody? Why don't I cover everybody? So I bought a list of pretty much every triplex or more number of units in Rhode Island, which is a state that I invest in. And I hired a VA from the Philippines and gave him the list and told him to call every single number on that list. And the way it works is he's the initial call. He just basically asks them a couple of simple questions like, would you like to sell your house? Are you interested in, entertaining an offer for your house? If they say no, I'll just ask them. He'll just ask them, is there a price that will make you change your mind, or is that like a no?
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes people have a price in mind. Sometimes it's a ridiculous price, but even if they say, you know what, I want $1 million, I want $1 billion. I told my VAs, like, you know what, we might be able to give you that price. Just have a chat with my partner, and that's when he makes the switch. He puts him on my calendar, and then I give him a call. And I called him and I'm like, hey, I heard you want $1 billion for your house. Let's see how we can make that work. And I always try to build relationships with these people, even if I know 100% that they will not sell me a property. I have a lot of people that I'm on the third or fourth follow up now, and I literally just call them to see how they are, how if they had any issues. Like an old lady told me that she was looking to replace some tenants. I gave her some tips. I asked her, about her new tenants, how they're working out. I taught her how to vet the tenants. She's so happy with me. She like smiles every time she answers the phone. And you never know. Maybe she knows somebody that wants to sell their property at one point, and I'll be the first person she calls.
And that's the key. They're not sellers, they're owners. Like you treat everyone like someone who owns real estate, not someone who can sell you something. And you build relationships. People like you in your community. They want to help move you forward. And like you said, who knows? If you're just a normal person, sometimes they know someone else who's selling something. They have a family friend. That's how a lot of our opportunities came together. Is someone recommends us to someone else. They're like, hey, you know what? I know someone who wants to sell, and I am not the buyer for this. You should talk to whoever, and the deal comes together. Or you just help people and they like you. I mean, it's a fun way to do real estate. It's very social, and you get to just
Yeah.
meet people, learn new strategies, and you do that enough times, and like you're figuring out now or have found out, it eventually turns into opportunities that you get to close on. So let's talk about the one that you just closed. How did the meeting with that owner work? So your VA connects you. What happened
Yeah.
then?
So I gave him a call, and first thing he said was, "You know what? You got to see the property first. We gotta work out the numbers. I'm all for seller finance. In fact, that's how he wanted to sell his property and a bunch of other properties. He has about 80 buildings,
Wow.
and he said eventually he wants to unload all of them on 30-year notes. So I told him, okay, I'll buy all of them. But one at a time because I'm in the beginning. So I met with him and we hit it off, you know, right from the start. He's a very, very nice guy, very loved in his community. He is a restaurateur. He has a bunch of restaurants. He took me to his restaurant. He introduced me to a bunch of people, to his contractors. Very, very sociable guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I called him on one building, on a fourplex, on a mixed use fourplex. And he was the one that said, why don't you buy the whole block? I'm like, okay, let's buy the whole block then. What do you want for it? And we agreed on the numbers. We agreed on the term. He wanted a 30-year note. He wanted 6% interest. At the time, rates were well over 7%, probably like 8% for DSCR loans.
Yeah.
Actually, quite higher. And 6% worked for me. He gave me a good purchase price, and I ran the numbers, and day one, the property with cash flow. And the best part of it is this guy didn't raise his rents in years. So the rents were way below market. His properties were in really good condition. Like he spends money on the properties, but he still doesn't raise rents. He's like a unicorn. And so there's room to raise rents, there's room to stabilize the properties, and even though they cash flow day one, they're going to be monsters once they're stabilized and they're at market rent.
Yeah. Well, and for everyone listening, you found a deal, and everyone right now, the popular thing is, oh, interest rates are too high. It's a terrible time to buy. We don't know what's going to happen in real estate. You should wait. What I'm hearing here is you got a great price with the existing numbers. You got the interest rate that you wanted. So you got price, you got terms, and you found a deal that still has a lot of upside. It's not at market rent yet. For those who are scared of rents
Mhm.
pulling back, and if you look historically, they don't pull back. But if you're looking at rents and worried that they're going to drop, good news, it's already under market rent. They're just going to drop. They're going to drop as low as they were when you bought it, and it worked when you bought it. That is how you buy a stellar deal. So this is the whole block, 14
Yep.
units.
14 units. I have 9 apartments and 5 commercial spaces.
That is fantastic. So you're diversified, you own an entire block, and you focused on building the relationship with this person first. Now you said he had 80 buildings. Is he selling
Yep.
those buildings to anyone else, or are there more transactions on the
He's
horizon
he's
here?
selling. Yeah, I'm sorry. He's selling to a bunch of people. He told me though that anything I want to buy from his portfolio, he'll sell it to me because he prefers to sell on seller finance terms rather than cash. Because This guy's rich. Like he does not need cash. He does not want to invest anymore. He just wants to retire. He already retired like 7 years ago. He wants as little headache as possible. So this is what is best for him. He, you know, of course, he's not going to say no if somebody offers him 50% over market value for one of his buildings. In fact, he just sold a commercial plaza because a bidding war started and he didn't even list it for sale, just between his tenant and another guy that wanted to buy it. But he's not going to say no to that. He would be crazy to. But ideally, he'd like to sell me as much as possible on 30-year notes. And I didn't grill him on price either when we negotiated. I told him, listen, as long as you give me, a fair price, I'm not even going to negotiate that. I just want the property to not lose money day one. As long as it doesn't lose money day one, I knew there was a lot of upside in the properties with rent increases. And as long as it cash flow day one, and I told him, these are my metrics. These are the metrics that I need to have work day one. And she's like, yeah, don't worry, I'll give you a good deal.
There we go.
Like that, yeah.
And so you said you got it. So he's going to sell these on 30-year debt. Is there any balloon in there? Or is it like a full 30-year note?
30-year note. He said he wants to collect till he's 92. Oh, and another very fun thing. I asked him because I know that he wants to just collect passive income, and I know he has a lot of money. I asked him, hey, what if in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, whenever it is, I want to refinance out of these loans because I have equity. I need to redeploy it to buy more properties from you. I asked him, hey, what if I come to you and we have an appraisal and I do this again with you. I refinance with you.
The seller refinance.
Perfect. Please come to me. Like, okay. So whenever I want to refinance, I don't even have to go to the bank. I will get better rates than the bank at market value, and I won't have to submit any paperwork because he's my bank.
And do you know what's really funny? When you start doing stuff like renovation or you do other acquisitions, after on these seller finance deals, you've given them money a few times, they have cash. Often, when they know that you make your payments on all the real estate, they'll end up being your private money lender down the line. We've had that happen before as well, where it's like, hey, over the last few years, we've paid you hundreds of thousands of dollars. I have an opportunity I'm looking at. And I'm looking for a loan. We can get some relatively low interest rate debt from people that we've bought from before because we gave them the money that they're now lending to us.
He actually asked me right before we closed the deal. I mentioned that part of the down payment came from private money at an average of 11% interest rate.
Yeah.
And he was like, why didn't you come to me? I could have given you better terms. Like, I'm buying the building from you. Like, yeah, but I could have loaned you the loan as well.
Well,
I didn't know that, but yeah, I could have asked him.
Well, if you want to do that, that's probably something you can just replace the first note with that note. I know we're looking at doing that. I have some I think it was 10% debt. And I have someone who wants to place money at 8%. 8% is a pretty good return for most people, especially if you're just parking cash in a bank account that makes nothing. If I could take 10% debt down to 8% consistently through a portfolio, that's a fantastic deal. Everyone wins. That might be something you'll get doing in the future is how much of that down payment's at 11%?
Half of it.
Okay.
So $100,000.
Perfect. If he wants to place it at 7 or 8%, you might go to someone like him or someone else and just pay off that note and replace it with 7% debt.
Yeah. That's actually pretty smart.
Yeah, not a bad idea. You can always refinance debt. That's what I like about debt. It's very flexible and you can negotiate just about everything.
Yeah, and if you refinance it with private lenders, it's so easy.
Mm-hmm. And there's so many things you can do in creative finance, and I'm excited for you to get to do some of these plays. You can do, like you mentioned, the seller refinance. If you really get the equity up on a property, you can do the seller refinance with a cash out. So on a cash out refinance, the funny thing about it is if you think about it, you buy the property from them, say 10% down, and then you bring the value up on that property significantly. If you do a cash out refinance a few years later, technically the seller paid you money to buy
Yeah.
the cash flowing property.
Yeah, we covered that. I asked him if in my scenario, instead of pulling cash out, my scenario was, what if I use the extra to give you another down payment to buy more buildings from you? He's like,
Yep.
yeah, of course, that's brilliant. Let's do it.
put a second on building A to go buy the second one. We pitched that to someone who does a lot of seller financing, and it was the wrong deal for him. So he laughed. He's like, I'm not ready to sell that building yet, but I love that pitch. He's like, when I was your age, that is exactly what I would have done. He loved that we asked. And that's the fun thing about having those relationships is even if you get a no, uh, you get to play the game with people who truly appreciate what you're doing. And the creative piece makes this so fun because anything you can imagine, you can do. Cody and I, it's the smallest thing that we'll own. But later today, we're doing our first actual zero down deal. It's 100% seller financed and it's on a tiny home that we're adding to one of our properties. So super small deal, super small building. But the negotiation was like, I was like, look, I would love to own this. I have use for it. I'm trying to pay
It's a
down debt
badge
right
of
now.
honor.
I don't want to take on. I don't want to spend any money that's not going towards paying off debt. He's like, well, what if it was zero down? And I was like, yeah, actually, that totally works. And so getting some of that creative stuff where it's like, well, how did you raise the down payment? I didn't. There was no down payment. Crazy. You can do all these things as long as both parties want to do it. It can all happen.
I feel like in the creative finance world, that's a badge of honor. If you get, your zero down, zero everything uh, asset, that's just, I did it.
Yeah,
It's
it,
like
it, it is fun to
leveling
say
up.
that we did that. Of course, it's only on a building that's well, it's a tiny home, so it's on wheels, so it's technically on a vehicle, and it's only $59,000. However, it is fun to say that
Yeah.
we finally got one. I've always dreamed of getting one that is truly zero down. This will be our first.
So the final level of that in this scenario would be zero down and zero interest.
That would
That's
be
like the
impressive.
ultimate level, right?
That would be a different level. I believe, I don't know if it was zero down. I know Michael Zuber has done a zero interest rate deal. I've seen some people do zero interest. If you
I
can
saw
get
one
both in
at
one,
Pace Morby, yeah.
yeah, you can get both in one. It's very impressive. Usually that just means that you're paying a very high price for it. But if you can imagine
Yeah,
it, it
that's
works for all parties. Some people really want their price. And sometimes a zero interest
yeah.
payment's the only way to do it. It's like, I can give you the price, but we're gonna have to pay it over time. It's all
I
principal.
actually pitched that to somebody, but they didn't go for it. But I pitched it to somebody over the phone, somebody that my VA connected me with.
Mm.
I think I gave them like 40% over their home value, something like that. I gave them a ridiculous number just just to see if I can get a zero down, zero interest type of deal. They didn't go for it, but they were very intrigued by it. They're like, "You can give me this amount? How? How? This doesn't make sense." Like, listen, as long as my monthly payments are less than what I can make, as long as my expenses are less than what the property brings in, I can give you any amount. I can give you $1 billion if
Yep.
I don't have to pay a lot for it.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Well, Vlad, that's what I had for today's podcast. I appreciate having you on. The message that I have for everyone here is that anything is possible. There's going to be more deals that Vlad does with this guy. There's going to be a few more people that you meet, Vlad, that are going to have the same story. Hey, I own 80 buildings. I'm trying to turn these into seller finance notes. That's how Cody and I got started. There's two people in the same market who own a lot of real estate, same exact thing, haven't raised rents for a long time, are going to write the deals right where they cash flow or at least just above break even. They have upside on them And these are in every market, all over the country. I see deals exactly like this. You found it on the East Coast. We're over on the West Coast. It's
Yep.
absolutely possible. But if you can imagine it and you can build that relationship, your options for creative finance go up through the roof. It is all based on actually forming that connection with that person. Because if you're going low down, that means that there's some level of trust. If someone asks for 30, 40% down, either you're paying off debt or they just don't trust that you're going to make all the payments and they want more security. You build that relationship, and all of a sudden things like down payment and how is this coming, it's completely different for how it's going to come together.
Oh yeah, I'm in negotiations right now with somebody that moved away from Rhode Island and actually has seven triplexes, I believe, that I'm trying to buy from her, and she seemed very interested on a hybrid deal of sub two and seller finance. So she has
Interesting.
loans on all of them. Yep.
Yep.
But she opened a business in Tennessee and she just loves it there. She said, I'm never coming back to Rhode Island. I just want to get rid of these. So yeah, I
There we
might
go.
acquire
That's
those too.
that's a good one too. I love the, so is it going to be this will be the last question to ask. I'm super curious about how these come together. Um, is it going to be a blend on all the buildings of subject to with seller financing, or are you seller financing some of the buildings and subject to on the other ones? How are you moving the debt
No,
around?
she has loans on all of them.
Okay.
So I'm basically gonna make payments if this goes through. I'm gonna make her payments on all of the buildings, and I gotta see the legalities of it. If I have to make just one balloon payment, one balloon seller finance payment, or if I have to do individual ones for each one.
That
But
that makes
yeah,
sense. Well, Vlad, that is stellar. That sounds like we're going to have you back on the channel here pretty soon, talking about a whole nother deal. For
hope
those who
so.
want to follow the journey, Vlad, what is the easiest way for people to follow your story, learn more about you? Where do we find you?
So I literally just started posting on Instagram. I think I have one post. I'm working on growing that. It's Vlad Stinga, my name. No dots, no nothing. You can find me there, and I promise I will post a lot more in the coming days and weeks. And I'll document my journey and all the steps.
There we go. Well, if I haven't hit follow on your Instagram yet, I'm going to do that in the next 5 minutes. Everyone, follow that. There's going to be a link to his Instagram below. The journey starts now, so be one of the first to follow the Vlad posting
Yeah.
story. If you guys want to see more of this type of content, you're here on our channel. If you haven't subscribed yet and you've watched this whole video, you're obviously interested enough to hit that button. Subscribe, like. If you want to ask me any questions, I'm on Instagram at Christian Osgood. No dots, punctuation, or anything else. Vlad, we're the lucky few who get our actual name as our Instagram handle.
Yeah. Yeah. It's awesome to have a different name, a weird name, right?
Yep, having an uncommon name. I'll tell you, Cody Davis is also a New England's Patriots player. Hard to outrank them online. So poor Cody
You're
has
trying.
a
You're
generic
trying.
Cody name. But if you want to follow Cody,
Yep.
he's on the channel with me all the time. He is basically, he's 22 and he's already the grandfather of seller financing. But for Cody, he's at doing Cody things. He has a cool Cody things t-shirt. I'll actually remember to link this the t-shirt as well here. It's on Amazon.
I
But
think Christian wears that more than Cody,
yeah,
actually.
we had a boss who really just was awful, and it just irritated him when I wore my Cody thing shirt. So I bought like four of them.
And hey, you can also find me in the mentorship group. I'm there all the time. Yeah.
Yes, Vlad is one of the most active members in our group. He contributes to almost every episode. We record these. We meet 3 times a week. Mondays, we talk about whatever everyone's working on. Usually about 35 people in the call, and we'll just talk about obstacles we've come against. We get into Tuesday, and it's my favorite day, deal deep dive. And Vlad contributes to that because Vlad's always looking at deals. But we actually
I love
figure out
that.
how are you putting deals together. We give feedback as a group on people's creative finance deals. And ultimately, there's deals that are found and funded through those calls. Thursday, we usually do some sort of structured lesson based on what everyone's working on through the week and open it up for conversation. It's usually about half an hour of Cody and Christian talking and half an hour of everyone else. But Vlad is an extremely active member. If you want to see more of Vlad, joining the group is
I'm
not a
pretty
bad
sure
idea.
you said I talk a lot, like 4 times already. Yeah, I know I talk a lot.
Well, that's exactly what we want. I want to have a group of people who really want to have the conversation about real estate. We love this game. If you're like me, I'm addicted to real estate. It's like a board game for me, and I just love learning new strategies. Having people who want to come on and have that conversation and just be nerds about financial freedom and real estate. It's a
Yes.
great group. You can find it on themultifamilystrategy.com. But Vlad, how has it been being part of the group?
Oh, it's amazing, Christian. I met so many really cool people. I met a bunch of you live at various conferences, and everybody is just amazing, both online and offline. Really, really cool group of people. They're all about learning. They're all about growing, and we all grow together. Yeah. And also on
Oh,
the Facebook group, there's a lot of questions being answered on the Facebook group, and I can't tell you how many people called because I always drop my number with my name on the Zoom calls,
mm-hmm.
and just people just text me out of the blue all the time, like, "Hey, can I ask you a couple of questions?" I'm like, "Sure, please, yeah, let's talk about it."
That's awesome. Well, Vlad, thank you for being an active member of that group as well. And again, if anyone wants to check that out, don't take my word for it, but reach out to Vlad. You can reach him at on Instagram. Just shoot him a message at Vlad
Yep,
Stinga and make it
I
happen.
always answer. I have one post.
But Vlad, thank you so much for joining us. And everyone, stay tuned, like and subscribe, and we'll see you
Thank you, Christian.
soon.